Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Penn State Nittany Lions are quietly building a phenomenal class in this 2024 cycle, recently landing the commitment from four-star defensive lineman Liam Andrews, who has a really interesting story. Primarily was recruited on the offensive side of the ball to play offensive tackle. For most of this recruiting process, early this year decides to flip to the defensive side of the ball. And you take a look at the film, it's really hard to argue that you're not getting a very quality defensive lineman. Taking a look at the national recruiting ranking, top 100 kid, the number one player in the state of Massachusetts. Penn State got a really good one. Now, before we get into the film and talk about what Penn State's doing in this 2024 class, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it's been just a blast talking recruiting. And for Penn State fans, we've talked a lot about this program and how high we are on it heading into 2023. Appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We took a deep dive into this program. I'll link it up above. You guys can go check that out as well. Apologies, sound a little sick right now. It's been a battle, but I want to talk some Penn State football, especially on the recruiting trail, because it's just a class that I feel like everyone's talking about. Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. Penn State's right up there with a top 8 class in the country, and they still got some meat left on the bone in this class. And we're going to talk about some potential targets that could also be finding their way to Happy Valley. But I want to talk Liam Andrews first. And before we even get into it, I just want to talk about, we're going to dive into the film here. Liam Andrews, because he's played on the offensive side of the ball so much, I feel like this kid just gets how to use his hands and rush the passer. When you're trying to block pass rushers, I feel like you kind of get a better understanding of how to actually formulate a pass rush yourself. A very, very athletic dude, a functional body, a functional big body, which is often hard to find at the high school level. A guy that can play out on the edge, that 5 tech. He can kick on into the 3. I see him playing on the inside more. I think there's a lot of room on his frame for him to put on some really good weight. But as of right now, you're getting a former lacrosse and basketball player who's a functional athlete, knows how to use his hands. Those are all very good recipes for finding a very, very good pass rusher up front. And that's something that Penn State has done such a good job in the last couple of years. You take a look at this year. I mean, they got plenty of guys like Chop Robinson, who are NFL caliber players, potentially even first round NFL caliber players. Liam Andrews, like in Penn State, they continue to kind of just build up this trench. And on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the front 7, an absolutely loaded group. Firing up the film on Liam Andrews, you see him win with a variety of different ways. I love how he uses his hands. You see the length there. Takes on blocks extremely well. That pulling tackle just gets put in the dirt. He's a physical guy that can go right through you. You see him working kind of inside the tackle here. That bend and burst, I mean, if you play that one back there, like his bend and burst for how big he is, we're talking about a dude who's 6'5", 260 pounds, plays offensive tackle. I mean, look at him bend around that offensive tackle and go find the quarterback. He's got a really good motor on him as well. A lot to like about what he brings to the table on the defensive side of the ball. Knows how to use his hands. You see them very, very active. Knows how to counter. When you take a look at guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball at that pass rush position, they normally just rely on the athleticism and the burst and the power. Liam Andrews, you see on the offense side of the ball, that power is there. Liam Andrews is a guy that he knows how to use his hands. He's got a deep tool bag of pass rush moves, even getting chipped out of the running back. That's another quality that you could say. I mean, like, one, using your hands, knowing how to use your hands, and being a polished pass rusher, knowing how to stack and shed blocks in the run game, get in the backfield, make plays. He's a guy that kind of a little bit of a sleeper, and the more you turn on the film, solid offensive lineman. I think he'd be a phenomenal offensive lineman, but he flashes some stuff that you really, really like in terms of the versatility, in terms of how he uses his hands. Liam Andrews, a very, very exciting get for this Penn State team, and I kind of want to take a look at this class because, again, it just seems like people are talking about this Penn State class. I mean, you have one of the top running backs in the country kind of coming in as an athlete. Love the frame, 6'2", 200 pounds. Talk about the lineage of Penn State running backs with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton. Quentin Martin certainly could be that guy. You have an elite tight end coming in Luke Reynolds. They're recruiting that northeastern part really well, Connecticut, Massachusetts. A guy that not many people are talking about, Ethan Grunkemeyer, who was an Elite 11 guy, is rocketing up boards. And James Franklin had some other guys that he wanted to get in at the quarterback spot. A really nice job by James Franklin and the staff identifying a guy like Ethan Grunkemeyer when he signed was a low 3-star. Kind of, I think a lot of Penn State fans maybe scratching their head a little bit, quietly just moving up the board. And you're looking at a guy that might be a top 10 quarterback in his class. And I think you're really excited about that. And the last thing you're excited about, especially when you're talking about this defensive line and how well they've been able to recruit the position and develop the position this weekend, another 4-star defensive lineman scheduled to commit. And I know Penn State is in the thick of things for kid from Miami Central and T.A. Cunningham, who just like Liam Andrews, kind of a flex piece, right? 6'6", 275, plays primarily on the edge at the high school level. But on that frame, you see him getting up to 300 pounds, kicking on inside. You have two guys who really you like what they're getting in terms of versatility. Guys who can play on the inside, guys who can play on the outside. And that's kind of what Penn State's done. And as much as a lot of the national media, including myself at times, have said, oh, Penn State just doesn't have a big body on the inside. I mean, when you get guys who are just so athletic, like T.A. Cunningham or Liam Andrews, sometimes size isn't the most important thing. When you have a guy that's powerful in his hands and can get off blocks and challenge interior offensive linemen from an athletic standpoint, I do agree. I think there's a purpose for those big bodies on the inside. And that's why they were going after a guy like Bear Alexander after in the transfer portal. It's primarily worked out really well for Penn State. Like, they've been very, very good outside of that Michigan game. Like, they were phenomenal against the run. They have guys who can get after the passer, and that's where it starts, especially for Manny Diaz on the defense side of the ball. Creating havoc, creating negative plays, creating turnovers. Guys like Liam Andrews, potentially T.A. Cunningham, will certainly provide that element for this defense. Again, wanted to hop on, talk about Penn State, just highlight what James Franklin is doing. And again, one of those coaches that I think is just so criminally underrated in the college football landscape. So many people frustrated with him maybe not being able to break through. James Franklin continuing to build really, really strong programs, recruiting at a high level, and developing those guys in NFL draft picks. It seems like Penn State is really coming. And you take a look at the next couple of years, these are the years that we're talking about. These guys that are deciding to stay in school, Olu Fashanu, Curtis Jacobs, and then the guys you have coming up, Big Drew, the running backs. This is going to be an exciting year for Penn State fans. I would expect the recruiting to continue to thrive under James Franklin. Want to cut it there. Appreciate you guys checking the boys out, of course. And if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.